Thank you for joining me here, right? It's really a pleasure. I had a feeling that I need to have a talk with you because you're my girl.
Thanks.
Great to see the women in the blockchain and the crypto industry, I have to say. So the Kadena was recognized recently by Foster as one of the most promising blockchain companies to watch in 2020, right? And I will quote crypto investor Spencer soon. It's one of the most credible attempts in our industry to bring blockchain development into the mainstream. What I have to agree. But for those who are not involved or unfamiliar, can you give us a brief introduction to Kadena?
Sure, you got it. So there's been a lot of discussion in the blockchain space about why blockchain exists and why is it here. And our whole thesis is that it's worth more than just trading currencies, that you should be able to use blockchain for actually interesting and novel development, for actually creating applications, changing the way that businesses work. It's not just trading Bitcoin. The smart contracts let you do so much more if you had a platform that would let you. So we built Kadena from the beginning with this idea that if you had technology that businesses could trust and you could understand that the code that you write actually does what you think it will do, then blockchain will no longer be this questionable experimental technology. It'll be, well, obviously we're going to use it because it's so safe, because it allows us to do so many awesome flexible things. And so we started by creating a smart contract language and a private blockchain system. A smart contract is called Pact. And then we spent the last 2 years building it and launched last week the public blockchain system, which ties the whole thing together. You can write one application in Pact that is deployed on the public blockchain, and then if you have sensitive information or sensitive data, you can put that on the private blockchain, and with an oracle you can connect the two pieces to each other, but it's all integrated through Pact, so you don't have to try to worry about how to shoehorn like this thing to connect to this thing, and it's all built into the same system. So it's like, you know, the decentralized version of trying to go to Amazon and they have your storage and your compute and all in the same place. We're the decentralized version of you can go and you can make one application and it's both public and private and it has a smart contract language. And so in this vein of wanting to give people the ability to do everything on our platform, now we're also working with, we put Pact on top of Tendermint. And the goal is to eventually integrate that into the Cosmos ecosystem. So you could write one app that talks to Kadena Public and to Cosmos and uses Tendermint or Kadena Kuro, the Kadena private blockchain. And all of these pieces will all just work all from inside of our IDE / wallet called Chainweaver. Then we also have a grant from Polkadot to figure out how to integrate our system with Polkadot. So it's we have a lot of work ahead of us, but it's very exciting to finally be up.
Yes, actually, what I actually got very excited was, as you mentioned, the Pact, because as it's described as like first truly human readable smart contract language. What's for sure, you know, it makes it easier for developers, right?
Yeah. I've been writing a lot of Pact in the last 2 weeks because our network is actually up, so we can actually send things now. And it's actually really easy. You have the option to either, using our wallet application, you can like click through the buttons and it will populate the contracts for you, or you can just write a file that says all the things you wanted to do, have it processed by the Pact interpreter, and then send that blob to the blockchain. And really, I've been more and more actually just writing the files out and customizing it myself, because if it isn't going to work, when you run it through the interpreter, it will tell you. It will tell you before you even send it to the chain, like, oh, you missed this field. Oh, you typed this address wrong. Oh, you don't have enough gas to run this thing. You don't even have to send it to the blockchain before it will tell you whether the transaction you've written does what you want it to do. And that's because of the formal verification system built into Pact. All the code that you write gets verified before you even send it, which is really great. The term enterprise blockchain, because I don't necessarily think that enterprises need a different blockchain. than a regular business, than what a startup needs. And I think this bifurcation of the blockchain space into startup people and enterprise people has actually not served us in terms of actually developing our community. And we're trying to take the tools that would be required for enterprise, like, you know what your code does before you commit it. If you make a mistake, you can undo it. We have upgradable contracts, so if you want to change them over time, like you upgrade software, you can do that. And taking those tools and bringing them for everybody, because I don't think that those are characteristics that only enterprises want. Like, everybody wants to be able to debug their code. And so these saying like, oh, well, we can get by with just Solidity because we're not enterprise, like, that's silly. Everybody should be using Pact because it's just safer. So that was kind of a digression. But for Juno really helped with trying to figure out what pieces are actually necessary when you're building a real production application. I think one of the reasons that we shipped software so much faster than any other blockchain project, I mean, we raised in the middle of 2018, and by the end of 2019, we'd actually shipped our entire blockchain. Compare that to all of these other blockchain projects that raised a bunch of money and still don't have any code. I think it's because we're a team of production software developers. Like, I pushed code at a software shop for 3 years. We have our senior engineers come from Microsoft and Google and Barclays and JP Morgan. We were all built our careers on actually writing real production software that just works. We're not like experimental. We just thought this research project would be cool. And we built this with the intent of making something that people would want to use.
Was the thing that is actually the hybrid blockchain, right?
Yeah. So this is the whole idea of public blockchain and private blockchain all integrated into one piece. And this is unique for us because it means that you can actually talk about having applications for things that are sensitive. Like, we're working with a company now that they're hopefully launching in this quarter to create tracking of things that are regulated by the federal government here in the United States. So our first pilot with them is to do a marijuana tracking, because you have to track all those products from beginning to their final sale because of the way the government regulates them. They don't want anything coming in and out of the supply chain that can't be tracked. And so they want to be able to keep sensitive data on a private chain and then broadcast that information out to a public chain and only reveal the pieces that they're legally required to broadcast, which isn't necessary for the medical marijuana tracking, but is necessary if we ever wanted to do patient data. And that's the ultimate goal of this project with them, is if we ever wanted to be able to use a blockchain to track patient data, then you would have to be able to put some of it on a private blockchain and some of it on a public blockchain, because you can't put sensitive patient data out in the wild.
Talking about this project, can you tell us, like, what are the most interesting use cases of Kadena?
Sure. At this point, we're talking to the ones that get me excited, because I think that they're going to happen the soonest, are anything involving fintech. We're working with a company for consumer data privacy for your own financial data. So if you want to go get buy a new car, and the dealership wants your credit information so they can give you a loan on a new car, they want your data from your bank and your employer. And this company wants to provide a portal where you can, using the blockchain, have your bank send your information encrypted to the car loan company, and your employer encrypted send your information to the car loan company. And normally the way that you do that is everybody sends their information to Equifax, and then they have to pay money to Equifax to get their own data that they already sent. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants that. And so this idea is that you, as the end user, would have control over who gets to see your own data, but nobody actually has to send the data to the application directly. The application doesn't see your data. So this would be a really cool project, and we've been working with them for quite some time, and we're hoping that we're going to get it up soon. But this whole idea of being able to connect different potentially sensitive pieces of information, but leave the control up to the end user, that's the kind of project that gets me really excited.
Yeah, I mean, I recently, I could see that you're getting a lot of questions about the Libra, right? And about the controversial side of the Libra, but I actually would like to leave that and ask you that, but still, you know, in the loop, do you feel that the US is moving slow in the term of regulating the cryptocurrencies and even AI, digital assets, and the blockchains?
Yeah, it's hard because we do have so much more regulation than other countries, and I understand that what the government really wants to do is make sure that consumers are protected. That's why, you know, these laws exist, because people were scamming people that didn't have access to easy information in the 1940s, and that was definitely a problem. But now we have much more open access to information, and people can educate themselves in a way that it wasn't possible when Howie was trying to sell orange groves in Florida. And so I'm not certain that the restrictions should be so tight in the ways that they are. Maybe we could structure things in such a way that you have dollar amounts where, like, if you invest less than $1,000, then even if you're not accredited, then, but it's not my place to make legislation. Either way, it's difficult to knock the federal government when they really have our protections in mind. With that said, we have created our currency outside of the United States because the regulation was too much for us to deal with at this point in time. So
as most of the companies, right? I mean,
yeah.
And the island is actually based in Malta. I don't know if you heard about that. They call it a lot of times the crypto island, the Maltese island. So, and there's even the other, you know, the Estonia. There's the other jurisdiction. I don't know where you based exactly.
Oh, Kadena, our parent company is based in the Caymans.
Ah, okay. So it makes all easier. But I mean, like, it's all companies are doing that. Even the Binance is based in Malta. So yeah, that's the way how you have to do it these days. But to compare, maybe to speak about the comparison with the Bitcoin and Ethereum, like, we all know that the Bitcoin and the Ethereum is energy intensive, right? But I could read that Kadena's public blockchain is just 1/5 of the amount used to mine Bitcoin or the Ethereum. So can you tell us how you are actually, you know, reconciling the proof of the work with increasing power demand and environmental sustainability, let's say?
So from a technical perspective, the way that the Kadena public blockchain works, it uses a consensus protocol called Chainweb. And Chainweb is cool because it allows you to keep a constant hash power, but change the network configuration over time to larger and larger configurations that allow for more throughput without having to increase your hash power. It does increase your bandwidth requirements, but it doesn't increase your hash power requirements. So this is because of the way that the network actually links between chains. Each time you mine a block, right now we're on a 10-chain configuration, so each time you mine a block, each chain has to have connections to 3 other blocks, which means that the network can't get out of sync, and there's no, like, taking over one chain, because if you send all of your hash power to one chain, then you will not have the pieces of the other blocks necessary to continue, and people can just not choose to include yours and choose to include a different block. So this means that we have lower requirements in terms of the total hash power needed to mine, rather than all the miners only trying to make 1 block. You can have all the miners trying to make 10 blocks, and all the miners trying to make eventually 100 blocks or maybe 1,000 blocks, depending on how big the network gets. So that's the first thing, is we can just process more using less. And then the other comment that I make for people that say that proof of work is really environmentally intensive is to think about how much energy we use right now in order to make a global financial system. Like SWIFT and ACH and all of the banks maintaining their own networks. And when you think about the amount of invested that we've already put into all these networks, if we could have something that was more efficient, that could truly be global, then it would really be a significant benefit. So that's usually what I ask what I say when people ask about environmental concerns.
Yes, I mean that's exactly because there's so many concerns about like the crypto industry and the environmental concerns, but then when we look at that, what banks are the most efficient, environmentally efficient institutions. I mean, it completely makes sense.
It's really shocking when you think about all the things that go wrong all the time in the existing way that we move money around. Like, people actually have to, when you do a wire, type the address into the keyboard, and they get it wrong all the time. They send money to accounts where they weren't supposed to send money, and then people spend it, and then they get sued because they spent money that wasn't theirs, but it shouldn't have been there in the first place. Like, it's a whole, we can do better now. We can do better.
Yeah, and I'm very excited about this project because it actually is one of those projects that even if you're not the expert, right? You're not the technical expert, you're not the crypto expert, it just makes sense, right? It straight away you can see those advantages. So maybe the general question about the blockchain technology, as with all new technologies, there's always initial hesitation. So I would like to know, from your perspective, what would you say to those companies or those businesses who are still, suspicious about all AI, blockchain, crypto?
Whenever technological change is really a heavy investment for companies in general, and often it can take years for pouring money into technological change for it to really come to fruition. But if there's something that is a potential new revenue stream, a new product that they want to make but they haven't been able to make before, that's the perfect opportunity to try out blockchain. So if you always wanted to be able to share data with a competitor on something that would save you both a lot of money, but there is no way to do it, that's a good thing that you could use blockchain for. Or you always wanted to be able to productize something, but the data wasn't safe, or how would you even move that information in and out while not having to worry about the security of that? Or you can move the data around, but how do you monetize it? Blockchain is perfect for those things. So if you see the potential for, I always wanted to do this, but I haven't been able to do it yet, blockchain could be the answer, and that's a great way to easily onboard people into this without saying, okay, now you have to rewrite all of your existing systems. Because nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to rewrite all their existing systems. And even if you have somebody at the top who really believes in blockchain, like Fidelity, for example, Fidelity Investments, they're awesome. They're one of our early investors, and they have been, because Abby, their head at Fidelity, has been so into blockchain for so long, they're really ahead of the curve, but they're still not rewriting all of their existing systems. They're developing new products and new business lines that also use blockchain.
Mm-hmm. And what's on the personal level, what's your biggest hope for the blockchain tech in the long term and in the bigger picture?
I think we've had an awakening as a collective consciousness about what we're doing with our data in a way that, before we could track all the things and keep all the information, we never thought about, oh, if I use Google Maps to go everywhere, suddenly I'm giving Google all of my information. And now that people are thinking about this, I think blockchain can actually be a solution for this long-term problem of, I don't want people to be able to do things with my data if I don't want them to. And that's, for me personally, I think that's, if we could change the way that society is shaping so that it doesn't end up as some kind of Black Mirror dystopia of, you have to heart everyone and everybody knows everything about you at all times, into something where we can protect personal data privacy while also being able to monetize the things that we care about. That's my dream for blockchain, but we're a long way away.
You express it perfectly, because what my personal opinion is that I'm quite tired, to listen all the time about just the trading aspect. The Bitcoin price is up, Bitcoin price is down, there is new stable coin, there is this new coin, there is that coin, right? When it's like, when it's actually decreasing the importance of the technology, right? And the importance of what good can do this technology in the future, right? So that's message actually very important. So my last question would be actually that, what's next for Kadena? Tell us, because you're really fast with the development.
Yeah,
so
we have.
What's going to happen next 2 years?
2 years is like forever in crypto.
Yeah, like it's for Kadena, it's infinity, right?
Yeah, in 2 years we probably will have created a whole other blockchain. No, don't. Please no. One was enough sleepless nights. So now our focus is really on creating the product side. We've spent so long on the actual infrastructure. Does the mempool work? Does the peer-to-peer layer work? And now we have to think about things like, what's the user experience? How does it feel to use this thing? How is it easy for people to understand? What kinds of tools do they have? And then once people are onboarded onto the network, what can you do on the network? Like, is there the equivalent of a bank? Is there the equivalent of an insurance company? If you want to do something like escrow, is that easy? And does that already have something built in? Building up what I call the economy layer onto this ecosystem. Like, when you interact with the traditional financial economy right now, it has this ease of, well, I deposit my money here and then I move it with Venmo, and then I like all of these things that are the product of many years of user experience and people creating tools. So we have a long way to go before we can really rival that, but we're going to try.
Yeah, we can, until that, we can just educate people.
Yeah. And we spend a lot of time talking to people that are using Pact and using our stuff. So if you want to build a thing on top of Pact, we are happy to help. We will devote our time and energy to making it happen.
Cool. Thank you, Monica. Thank you for this interview. I think it's fine, and thank you for joining me here today. I'm sure you have to be very busy today.
Yep, it's a strategy planning day actually. So
so I'm very happy you share this day with us, a little time of that day.
Thanks.
Thank you, Monica, and have a nice day.
You too. Bye.